Hello everyone, this is Paukshte Fashion Workshop. I remind you that we post new videos every day. Today we continue working with the sleeve. We're showing you one more technique for edging it. Natalie stopped stitching the details, which we made in the previous video. She's stitching it from the right side, and by doing so, she's stitching the seam to the main fabric. Do not forget to make back stitches in the beginning and the end of the seam. Stitch the details in such way that the seam is directed towards the facing. The width of the seam is 1 mm. Stitch as far as possible. Then stitch the other side. The width of the seam is 1 mm as well. As I've already said, when stitching, the seam should be directed towards the facing. Spread the fabric carefully and continue stitching along the opening. The seam is tiny here. It should also be directed towards the facing. This is a very delicate work. Stitch as far as possible. Control the process with your fingers. Stitch as far as possible. Next, we need to stitch the second side. Do not forget to make back stitches at the beginning and the end. The stitches are tiny. I remind you that we made two seams, each of them about 2 mm away from the center sleeve, and then we made a cut in between them. The seams we're making now are even smaller. Next, we need to turn the details right side out and go to the ironing desk. Have a look at the top stitching. The seams are very beautiful. They're neat. Notice that we've stitched as close to the angles as possible. The same thing here. Iron the details carefully. Be very careful and attentive. Iron the details both from the right and from the wrong sides.
Аккуратно отутюжили все швы, вывернули, отутюжили.
We've turned the details right side out and ironed them.
И сразу же вот так
Have a look at the details. This is how they look like now.
обтачку.
Next, we're going to edge these details with an overlocker. We're going to do it off the camera.
Можно уже будет соединять рукав и делать отделочную строчку.
Later, we'll stitch the sleeve and make the top stitching. Have a close look here. Nataly has edged the facing and the sleeve with the overlocker.
Из рукава вместе с
These sides were edged together with the facing.
Она вот так отогнула и обработала. Стачиваем шов.
Next, we need to pin the sleeve
Вот здесь очень важно,
and stitch the underarm seam. Be careful. These seams have to match.
меняется с рукавом, чтобы эти точки
This is very important.
аккуратно тут.
Pin the details accurately.
Скалываем.
We can start stitching the underarm seam now.
Это один из
We're showing you one more way for edging the sleeves with the slits in them.
стачиваем шов рукава.
The width of the seam is 1 centimeter.
1 сантиметр.
Do not forget to make back stitches in the beginning and the end of the seam.
Вы это
You can tack the sleeve first, or just pin it.
так же скалывать, как Наташа. Аккуратно проходим.
Be very careful.
Это небольшое уплотнение.
This detail is pretty strong.
Тачка. Цельный шов, рукав.
The seam is ready. We've made just one seam both in the sleeve and the facing.
И вот эти точки.
It's very neat. These details match. Next, we need to iron the underarm seam.
Стачивание рукава. Мы его приутюжим.
And then press it open.
Разутюживать,
We're going to use a special ironing board.
которое у вас
I'm sure that everyone has one.
аккуратно
Be very careful.
высекаем уголочки,
Next, we need to cut the angles from the seams. Do not forget to do it.
чтобы здесь не было лишней толщины.
It should be done for the seams not to be too thick. Be very careful when ironing the facing.
С другой стороны,
Iron it both from the right and from the wrong sides.
глаз.
The slit is neat.
Разрезик.
Good job.
Идем на
Next, we need to go to the sewing machine to make the final top stitching.
После того, как мы хорошенько отутюжим,
First, we need to draw a line for it.
нужно разметить
In our case, the width of the seam is going to be 4 centimeters.
строчка. В нашем случае
I think that the top stitching will make the sleeve look very beautiful.
отделочка
We're going to top stitch both the facing and the sleeve bottom.
и низу рукава. А дальше уже ваш полет
Be
фантазии.
creative.
Хотите сделать блочку
Make buttons with loops,
с цепочками,
lacing,
навесные
or any other decorations.
какие-то металлические
Use your imagination.
туда. Все, что захотите. Очень тщательно,
The line you draw for top stitching should be seen clearly.
где у нас будет проходить отделочная строчка. Да.
You can either pin the details or tag them.
Будет давать строчку. Но вы можете и сметать это место. чтобы
This is a
когда
very delicate work.
отделочную строчку ничего не съехало. Начинаем отделочную строчку.
We can start stitching now. Be especially attentive when stitching the corners.
Чтобы она не бросалась в глаза.
The seam should be flawless.
Чуть-чуть покрупнее
The
стежок
stitches should be small.
и аккуратно, точно
Stitch right along the drawn line.
вот в закруглениях.
Be very attentive, please.
Верхняя часть
We're
разреза.
top stitching the slit. There is an angle there as well.
Линия аккуратнее,
Be very careful.
точно по линии. Эта строчка
I remind you that we're making a decorative top stitching.
безупречная. По прямой, конечно,
It's much easier to stitch straight lines than the corners.
закругление.
But it's okay. Just be careful.
И уже скоро-скоро наш рукавчик будет готов.
Do not forget to make a back stitch in the end. Cut the threads
Снимаем, убираем все нитки.
and iron the sleeve once again.
Осталось хорошо поутюжить.
Be very
Аккуратно
careful.
отутюживаем. Хорошенький
The sleeve is very beautiful.
разрезом. Такой разрез на рукаве поля для творчества.
Be creative.
Украшать
You can decorate such slits however you want. The sleeve is ready.
даже сам разрез
It looks absolutely amazing.
уже смотрится
That's all for today. Be different and beautiful. We're Ira and Nataly.
рукава с
Buy the courses, subscribe to this channel, write comments, share the videos, press the like and the bell buttons. We would really appreciate your support. Thank you. Goodbye.